Hi, it's Coach Gallion. I wanted to communicate real quickly through a video because this is too long to write in an email. I'll try to keep it short, but I wanted to communicate a few things to players and parents, high school age players and parents. First of all, I'm great to see everybody and glad that we got off to a good start this week. So we have 11 more weeks to go through winter training program. Obviously, you've all been involved with the schedules and getting those together. I just wanted to kind of talk about the approach on how these schedules are playing out. I know you've looked at your own individual time slots, and those might still change around a little bit, but these are individualized rotations where we're just 5 different stations: pitching, hitting, fielding, catching, and strength training. So some players do 2 of the 5. We actually have 2 players that are doing all 5. And so players are there on Saturday between 2.5 to 5 hours. Obviously, just a couple players are there for the entire 5 hours. 105 players are individualized, have been scheduled through this. We have 105 players in our 15 to 17U program, 60 players that pitch, 97 players that hit, and we have 20 catchers kind of going through it. So this is equivalent to basically a minor league training system for a big league team, because then with the sheer number of players that are coming through, obviously bigger than colleges, bigger than high schools. It's quite a feat to get this thing managed, and we appreciate everyone's patience as we try to figure it out. There'll still be some iterations, but our goal is basically to provide as much time and individualized training and reps as we can to each player based on their specific situation as they go through the winter training. 12 weeks to get better before high school baseball starts. I want to back up a minute and talk about our coaching philosophy for returning players and parents. You've heard this a little bit last year. I wanted to kind of talk about it again. And that this has been a migration for us over the past decade to a new way of coaching that has gotten a lot of attention in media and science-based articles, etc. And it has several elements to it. One is what we call constraints-based training. And so this is us putting different constraints on players and asking them to perform a certain task. So this could be throwing a medicine ball with a proper movement, throwing weighted balls, hitting weighted balls, hitting weighted bats, hitting with weighted bats, hitting with light bats, hitting with PVC pipes. So a lot of different kind of things in their hands and constraints that basically we're asking them to move their body in a certain way and learn how to repeat that body movement. So things have transitioned a little bit away from pure mechanical aspects to kind of body movements and strength related to specific body movements that put you in a position to repeat your mechanics consistently. Another big change is towards external cueing, where most of the drills and things we're having players do, they're doing it with an objective that is external. In other words, we're not saying keep your head down. We're saying drive the ball to the back of the cage. Obviously, if you draw the ball to the back of the cage, you're going to be keeping your head down. So we want external cues. We want to cue them to do things that they can get immediate feedback on, visual feedback, to understand if they've done it or not, compared to things that are kind of internal cueing, which is hard for the player to feel and hard to communicate about. So we want to kind of go from internal cues to external cues, and the final point is a lot of data and visual feedback. Put this ball in a certain location, hitting an incredible amount of data, visual feedback. Like where they are asked to do things for a purpose where they get immediate feedback on whether that purpose was successful or not. What the studies show and what we found over the last several years is when you put good athletes in that situation where they get good feedback, they're such good athletes that they can make adaptations and adjustments on their own. They basically can coach themselves some of the fine motor skills if you give them the feedback, and they can learn from it. All this philosophy is really geared towards top of the pyramid athletes. In baseball, that's the top 7% of high school players that go on to play college baseball. We wouldn't necessarily be teaching, and we don't have the same approach for younger gamers or the younger gamer academy players, where kind of more physical mechanics and learning how to throw a baseball is still something they need to learn to do. want to talk a little bit about the top of the pyramid. Again, in baseball, high school baseball is the top 7% of college of players that go in to play college baseball and or are drafted. 2% of those go in to play Division I baseball or are drafted. So that's what the top of pyramid looks like in terms of numbers. Our challenge as a youth baseball program at the level that we participate in is to develop those top 7% players in a team environment. And that's really the approach that we take during the wintertime, and a lot of what we do revolves around developing players at the top of the pyramid. In pitching, historically, we've been off the charts on this. Just these are the last 3 years of our pitching stats at our 17U Blue team. 17U Blue team plays the absolute top competition in the country year after year after year. No one in the region plays a better schedule. Other programs play equivalent schedule. Top tier plays an equivalent schedule. I mean, there are teams that play equivalent schedules. But our this is against the kind of the top of the pyramid in terms of 17U baseball, so kids that have just finished their junior year. You can see, I mean, pitching-wise, we know how to develop players to be in the top 7%. We've been doing it for years and have been incredibly successful at doing it. Hitting's have been more of a challenge for us for lots of reasons. One is that we live in the a cold weather climate, and so we compete against hot weather climate players that play a lot more baseball, see a lot more live pitching, and take a lot more live at-bats. So our hitters are kind of trying to catch up, and so we've been applying technology to do that. These couple of charts show kind of like the Mach 1 approach. It's all been kind of developed in the Mach 1 approach, a data-driven approach, so players know what their data is based on HitTrax data, blast motion data. We've added KVS, which looks at body movement and the kinetic sequencing of a swing. So our players have lots of data. We have lots of information to make coaching decisions on. The results of this has been really impressive in terms of increases in exit velocity, increases in launch angle. In other words, getting the ball in the air more so that it has a better chance of getting past the infield and dropping. And a traditional issue, this is why in the big leagues you see all the shifts, is the players max out their bat speed on pull side ground balls. And so the challenge is to get your pull side launch angle up into the air so you can get the ball out of the infield on your pull side. So we've had big increases over the last year on players that have been engaged in this over last winter, through the winter. It's done by a combination of very high intent reps at game velocity of movement. This is why we have the EHAC machines throwing 80 miles an hour, and we'll increase that to mid 80s and upper 80s over the course of the winter. We're going to add in breaking balls and off-speed pitches to get game-like reps, to develop their skills in more game-like conditions, compared to hitting off of a tee and hitting off a front toss, which is more a mechanical kind of training environment. Our approach on this is to do assessments, to train based on those assessments, based individually on issues that players need to work on, and measure, reassess, and repeat the process. We'll do that 2 times during the course of the winter. We're doing assessments now for hitters. Those will be turned into more or less individualized programs that will run for 4 weeks. So we'll do another week of assessments, another 4-week set of training programs around the issues that we believe that the players have. This is all built around leading technology and data platforms. But at the very essence of being able to control body movement, whether it's pitching or hitting, is strength and mobility. And whether that's hip, shoulder, the kinetic sequence between hip, shoulders, and hands, the very foundation is strength training and mobility training. This kind of training that we're doing, in particular off of the EAC and train is with HitTrax machines, is very hard. You're going to fail a lot. There can be a lot of swing and misses, especially early on in the winter. You got to just adjust to it. You'll figure it out. The biggest thing you can do to improve your numbers is lift weights and get stronger. You cannot be in the top 7% of baseball players unless you're very powerful and very strong. It's just the cold hard fact of it, which really comes down to player accountability. I mean, we see our jobs as creating an environment for success. But the actual success is up to you. You need to be accountable for your own success as a player. It's true in academics. It's true in other parts of life as you go to college, etc. It's a great time to learn that lesson. You are accountable and responsible for your own success. We can do a lot, and have done a lot, to create a good environment for you to develop and succeed in, but at the end of the day, it takes your effort, your sweat, and your discipline to get it done. So what do we mean by player accountability? Number one, attending practices. You're not going to get better unless you go practice and work out and develop, and improving metrics. This is honestly where the biggest single challenge to multi-sport athletes, wrestlers and basketball players during the winter. This is the time you need to improve your metrics, get better at baseball in preparation for the upcoming season. You're also playing a different sport, which makes it very, very difficult to focus on what you need to do on baseball. You cannot skip your hours on baseball development, or you're going to fall behind. I wish that wasn't true, but at the top 7% level that you're competing at, you don't. It takes a really, really special athlete to not develop themselves and still participate at the top 7% level. The other thing related to that is strength training and weightlifting, incredibly important at this age, at the high school age, and as you prepare to hopefully play college baseball. Baseball is not a game for fat kids. It's not a game for skinny kids. It's just the reality of it. I guess if you're skinny and 6'7" and can throw the ball really hard, there's a role for you. If you're a chubby little second baseman that can drive the ball 350 feet, there's exceptions. So there's exception to every statement I'm making. But for the most part, if you look at college baseball players, they look the same. Their build is the same. They're basically 6 foot to 6'2". They weigh anywhere from 190 to 215. So that's where you need to be moving towards to compete with the players that ultimately you're going to be competing with this summer. So strength training and weightlifting, it's really your accountability to get that stuff done. Throw Smart for pitchers. The Throw Smart program, which will add velocity, 4 to 7 miles per hour of velocity, but it will only do it if you do it 3 times a week. If you try to skip and do it once or twice a week, you're going to get the results from that kind of effort, which will maybe be 1 or 2 miles an hour improvement. To get the full benefit, you've got to be doing it 3 times a week. That means 1 time a week it's going to be on your own. If you follow that program, your velo is going to go up. You're going to be more healthy. You're not going to have arm issues when you start pitching in high school. But it's up to you to do that. Other issue of player accountability, for the most part, 80% of our players need to add lean muscle mass on this path to being 190 to 215, adding lean muscle mass. There's a handful of players that need to do the opposite, lose some baby fat while adding muscle mass to improve their body fat ratios. That's all done through nutrition. You can't get stronger without nutrition. You can't develop as an athlete without good nutrition. And at the end of the day, it's up to you. We're going to see the results because your bat speed's not going to go up, your velo's not going to get up, you're not going to be strong enough to do the movements that we want you to do unless you're on a nutrition program that adds lean muscle mass at a pretty fast rate. Baseball is a game, if you're a position player in baseball, unless you're hitting the ball over 95, at this age, over 90 consistently, it's not a game for slow players. There's only a couple spots on the field for slow players. If you've got average or below average speed, you need to be fixing that right now. We built some stuff in the program, but honestly, we've got some kids that are pretty fast, and it's not the kind of thing we do across the program. I will say that one of the fastest players that we've ever coached, Marco Mathon, who's going to play Division II baseball at Rockhurst. Marco still takes speed training classes, even though my guess is that he runs a 6'6", 60-yard dash. He still takes speed training classes because speed is how he's going to compete in baseball, and he wants to be the absolute best at it. So it's not, so everyone else is getting faster. If you're average right now, you need to get faster too. Those are all things I've just mentioned that at the end of the day, we can provide an environment for, or we can provide access to training approaches, but at the end of the day, it's your accountability. You need to do it. The final thing is staying healthy. So if you're 15 years old, you've got 12 weeks to get better before you go to play high school baseball. High school baseball is going to focus on playing games, not getting better. And then you come back to summer baseball. Summer baseball starts Memorial Day, and we play a very intense schedule through the end of July. A lot of practice, a lot of development time during that period of time. But, you're expected to show up and play at a very, very high level starting Memorial Day. So to do that, you need to stay healthy, in particular during this off season, to get better, to lift weights, to get stronger. Now, if you get hurt, we had a young man get hurt, a 15-year-old, in the weight room the other day. He's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks because of a pretty bad injury. I'm not talking about that stuff like that. I'm talking about stuff not related to baseball, not related to getting you better. It's always a chance that working to get better in baseball, you're going to get hurt. But 9 times out of 10, the injuries that occur during the wintertime are not baseball related. They're related to either a secondary sport or something that is not related to getting better in baseball. So if you're out 6 to 8 weeks or longer during the off season, you're not giving yourself the opportunity to get better. Not as a big of a deal when you're 15. When you're 16, it's a bigger deal. When you're 17, it's a very big deal. So back to this point of metrics. This is just an example. We could have pulled 100 different ways of looking at this. But the point I'm trying to make here is metrics matter. We have two 17-year-old teams. One team I talked about earlier competes at the very highest level nationally. The other team plays at a very high level regionally. A lot of Division II players. A lot of players go to JUCO from there to develop. They maybe are late bloomers. They develop into very good players and go on to play pretty high level college baseball. But we don't make team assignments firmly for high school players until we go through the wintertime and see how players develop and see where they're at. But you can look at this chart. This is average exit velocity and max exit velocity. Metrics matter. I mean, the players that can hit the ball harder on a more consistent basis are going to be on the blue team at 17U and are going to compete nationally and mostly in front of Division I colleges. The players at the lower end of that still need a lot of development, and their future will be kind of dictated based on how quickly they develop. That's just the cold reality of it. Metrics matter. It's true in pitching. It's true in speed. It's true in defense, although defense really doesn't have metrics yet. But coaches can look and see on how you move and how you throw. No one will ever tell you throw too hard, so you need to get your throwing velocity up wherever you're at right now. You need to continue to get your throwing velocity up. We could do a similar chart with throwing velocity, and the same chart, the same results would show up. So this is all within your control. You want to be on the better teams that travel nationally and compete at the national level, get your bat speed up, get your throwing velocity up. The way to do that is, one, aggressively participate in development, practice sessions, and number two, be in the weight room, and number three, nutrition. It's not hard. It's simple, in fact, and it's not magic. The final thing I want to talk about is self-discipline and respect. So anytime that you're part of a process, this idea of us creating an environment, it's a process of trying to provide an environment for you to get better and to achieve your goals. To succeed in that takes self-discipline on your part and respect on your part for the process that you're part of. So what's that mean? That means you need to be on time. I mean, the amount of effort that goes into structuring this environment for the players is a very high level effort that goes into this. We ask you to be on time, and if you're not on time, to let us know in advance so that our schedule for this very rigorous day that we've laid out is not messed up. So you need to respect the effort that we're putting into this, and your teammates are, by being on time. And if we realize, once a month, 3 times a winter, you're going to be late. Let us know in advance, and everything will be fine. If you're habitually late, like 50% of the time, that is a self-discipline problem, and that's a respect problem. And that needs to be addressed. The second point on this is your goal, or at least the overarching kind of objective, is to develop a player that can play college baseball. Part of this is looking the part. It's a big part of it. And I mean, I would encourage people, when the spring comes around, to go and watch some college baseball games so you have an understanding of what the players look like, both size, how they carry themselves on the field, how they represent their programs and represent themselves. We're asking you to look the part, and that means, I'm going to scroll through some pictures here of recent College World Series teams. I mean, guys, there's not a lot of hair down over the shoulders. It's just the reality. You want to look the part. You want to be like this. Not a lot of long hair. I don't see any earrings anywhere. Guys have their shirts tucked in, except for the guys that are celebrating or have championship jerseys over their game jersey. But I guarantee you that they, when they were competing on the field, that they looked the part. Their shirts were tucked in. In the pregame batting practice, everyone looked the same. In their practice sessions, everyone looks the same. It's all about self-discipline and respect. That's what it's about. It's not about you personally giving up something. It's about you giving something in terms of self-discipline and respect for the process, for being part of your team, and being part of this goal of playing a higher level of baseball. Okay, so that took a little longer than I thought. I look forward to seeing everyone this weekend. ACT tests start tomorrow. The schedule's messed up. Don't forget to get your uniforms fitted at Johnny Mac's, the former location of Johnny Mac's by BSN Sports. And then we'll see you next week. Next week, we'll put out some Christmas week schedules. Obviously, the practices on Tuesday night, Christmas Eve, and Wednesday, Christmas Day, will be changed. We'll probably do something on Thursday to accommodate that change for people that are going to be in town and want the work. Thank you. Bye.